Actually.
All right, it's 3. I'm gonna let everybody in, but we'll still give a few minutes for other people to join. All right, I'm gonna admit them.
Hello, everyone. We'll start in just a few minutes. You to make this one. I got it. Where's Bible? Let me know, Autumn, when we should go. Few more minutes. Yay, Dee, we can see your face.
Yeah. I'm on a really small chair of it.
I love it.
And then I moved my computer, so I don't know why I didn't think about that. I need to, hopefully I don't knock it over. Maybe I should probably tape it to the chair. Let me do that really quick.
Okay.
Just in case.
No worries.
There's still a few more people joining, so it's maybe till 3:05. And could we confirm the ingredient list? So 3 pounds orange, about and it was 4 cups sugar, right?
Yes.
I'm all showing you.
Water.
I feel like I'm on Food Network, Autumn.
You are. This is your show.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Quick question. What else are we going to need aside from the ingredients? Are we going to need like a juice extractor or something?
You'll use the juice from your oranges because we're going to use the whole orange today.
Okay, got it.
So just the whole orange today.
So measuring cups, like a cup would be good to have.
I have the extra stuff that I have some spoons to taste. I have some taster spoons here, just a few. I have a little paring knife. just so in case you don't have a zester to zest your lemon. I have just a little teaspoon here because I'm going to use chili flake in my recipe. And then I just have an extra bowl just in case I need to have other tools put in there.
Excuse me, I thought this was just a tutorial. We didn't have to have the ingredients, did we?
No, we will also upload this recording. So if you want to make it later on, you can have access to it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Using a little paring knife.
Yeah. Alrighty.
All right, so it's 3:05. I don't know if you guys are ready to get started. I'll keep admitting people as they come in.
Awesome. Give me 1 second. All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is the CSUSB Coyote Garden Presents Orange Marmalade, and this is part of our Preserve Your Harvest series. So we're super excited to have you guys continue with us. Last month we did our pesto workshop, which was a huge blast and it went really well. We also used local produce from the Huerta de Valle community garden, which was fabulous. We're gonna go ahead and get started here, okay? Alrighty, we're gonna do some brief introductions. So we have our Coyote Garden staff. Autumn, if you wanna go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Autumn. I'm the CSUSB Garden Agriculture Coordinator. I'm in charge of maintenance of the garden and planning for harvests. And it's nice to have you all here.
Yes, and then I'm Sage. I'm the CSUSB Garden Outreach Coordinator as well for IERCD, which is the Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. I get to do all the fun marketing and get to help Autumn out with some of our planning for the garden in the upcoming year. So keep an eye out on some of our social medias that we'll provide at the end of the presentation. And then
Are we supposed to be able to see you?
I'm going to show you the PowerPoint first, and then you'll be able to see me.
All right, thank you.
Yes, of course. And then I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our friend Dee, who's going to be presenting on behalf of the Master Food Preservers today. Woohoo! Awesome. And Dee is a program coordinator, and she's also the Division of Agriculture and Natural Resources. At UCCE, they have volunteers that share peer-reviewed research-based information on home preservation and food safety. And then all of our produce that were in the kits that you guys were provided, if so today and Thursday, we had local produce that was supported through local farms and orchards and community gardens through Huerta de Valle and Charcita Organic Farms. And then I'm gonna go with Autumn.
All right, so this is just a little infographic talking about the importance of urban fruit trees. As you may know or may not know, the Inland Empire has been historically a location where citrus trees have been grown. We have a really good climate to grow oranges, lemons, grapefruits, all kinds of citrus. But there is a disease that is currently affecting a lot of the citrus in our area. It's called the Asian citrus psyllid. Not only do, industrial growers have to be concerned about this, but this could affect, backyard trees. So we would recommend that you look into the Asian citrus psyllid. There are different diseases and pests that look similar to it. So if you see that your tree is struggling, it might be this, might not be, but it's best to, keep checking your trees, make sure they're healthy. And if they're not, you can contact the Asian citrus psyllid hotline. And we can provide that website in the chat. Yeah, so we can move on to the presentation if everyone's ready.
Gotcha. And then here are some resources. We'll also be able to send this to you all through email after our event. But these are some social media platforms to look out for. We have our CSUSB Coyote Garden, which you might have seen with all of the information. We have the Inland Empire RCD. which also provides some also really good information for upcoming events or any gardening, conservation, those type of workshops, or just educational material. We have our CSUSB Basic Needs website or Instagram as well. We got to partner with them for our Cal State students to have access to this workshop and kits. And then we have our Huerta de Valle and our Tarsadia farms. We also have a link up there that we'll provide in the chat for you all to check out for the Master Preservers program. And we want to thank you all again for your support, and we're going to go ahead and get started, okay?
All right, so I guess that's me. Hi, welcome everybody. Today we're going to go ahead and get started into our presentation. I have a little PowerPoint. You'll see me go over here because I got my computer to the side here. So sorry, you have to look at my side there for just a second. So welcome again. Today we're going to be doing orange marmalade, and this recipe is going to be a freezer recipe or a refrigerator recipe. We're not going to can this for shelf stable storage. So a little bit, this is hosted again by the CSUSB Coyote Garden and the Inland Empire Natural Resources Conservation District. And then also we had the fruit from Huerta de Valle, and there was one other garden, but our farmer, but I forgot to mention them. So if you could type that into the chat, I'd appreciate that, Autumn. So again, a little bit about the San Bernardino Master Food Preservers. We are a division of the Agricultural and Natural Resources, UC-ANR, and we are a trained group of volunteers. We go through an 18-week training, and then we're volunteers, so we don't get paid to come back into our communities and share the information that we learned about safe home food preservation. And one thing that I wanted to mention through the presentation, that if you hear me mention specific brand names or other products, I'm not endorsing those products. I'm just simply referring to those products for our presentation. And then a little housekeeping for our presentation today is keep your cameras off for low bandwidth so that we're able to keep this going and recording. Hopefully I won't have any internet issues. We are recording today's presentation for people who weren't able to join. And then if we mute our microphones, but if you have a question, since this isn't like a full presentation, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions or raise your hand so that we can go ahead and so we don't have multiple people talking at one time. And then if you want a copy of this presentation, my email information is here, but I will also provide the information over to Autumn and Sage so they can send this presentation out for anybody who's interested in having it. So in San Bernardino, we have other UCCE resources available at our disposal. We have the Master Gardeners, and I posted the contact information for Master Gardeners for their website, where you can get information about the Asian citrusillid or any other gardening questions that you may have. They have a wonderful helpline, and they are able to do that where you can take a picture, say, what's this? And they'll get back with all the research for you. And it's completely free for you to utilize this service as a resident of San Bernardino County. And then we also have several academic advisors at our disposal in natural resources, urban agriculture, natural resources, horticulture, and then dairy. Sorry, dairy. I don't get to see her very often. And then just a little bit about starting what we're doing today is that you want to make sure that your work area is clean and that you've gathered your supplies. And then you want to have your recipe out for quick reference. So today I printed my recipe and I have it out in front of my tripod there so that you're able to have that. But today's recipe is really easy, but in the future, when you have something, if you're in your kitchen, have your recipe handy so that you don't have to kind of rely on your memory to do that. And then we want to always wash our hands. That's one thing with the Master Food Preserver. First and foremost, we're about food safety and making sure that you're safe in your kitchen. So washing your hands for 20 seconds is where we want to start. So marmalade is actually, it's a tender jelly, and it has the actual entire fruit that's in there. So we're going to use the whole fruit today. You might see recipes for marmalade where it asks you just to go ahead and get the inside of the orange. But the recipe that we have today, which is going to be a cook down recipe, so it's going to take us a little bit of time in between our steps. So we'll use the entire orange. We want to make sure that if you haven't already washed your citrus, your oranges and your lemon, to please go ahead and wash them before you start any type of preservation where you're using your product, you always want to wash the item that you're preserving. Make sure it's good and clean. And so the thing that makes marmalade is that we're going to have the peel or the zest of the item that we're going to have. So you can maybe have a lemon marmalade. You're going to have your lemon peelets in there. But today we're going to be using orange, and we'll also be using the lemon zest and the lemon juice. And then here's the recipe. This is from the Ball website. It's freshpreserving.com, and this is from their UK website. So what we made when we were putting this workshop together, we thought we would go ahead and add a little zest to it by giving you an option of making this into a spicy marmalade. So you have the option of adding a habanero or some dried Colorado peppers, but today I'm going to be using red chili flakes, some crushed chili flakes, and I'll show you how I'm going to incorporate those in there, because I'm going to be using mine possibly for a barbecue glaze instead of just a natural marmalade. So, but if you don't want to add those variations to it or add extra, if you want to add a seasoning or spice to it, you don't need to. This is what you're making in your house and in your kitchen, so you can customize it to how you want it. And even more so because the preservation method that we're using today is going to be a freezer method or a refrigerator method. So as a master food preserver, we always want to promote that you're using safe recipes, and we want to make sure that they're research based. So today we're going to start by slicing our oranges. And in your kit today, of course, you want to get a better knife than what I've got. So I just cut the end off there that I have on mine. But so if you can go ahead and start slicing them, but I also want to show for you this white pith area here. This tends to make stuff bitter. So that's why you'll see orange marmalade recipes where it actually has you just use the outside edge of the orange. So if you're going to follow a recipe that's like, you see that white part that's here with that, you want to make sure that you scrape that out. And it's very easy to scrape out. So you can just take a spoon and scrape that out if you were using a different recipe. But I just want to make sure that I show everybody that, because when we talk about orange peel in a orange marmalade, if you get that white pith in there, this is going to make it very bitter. So just little FYI. But today, since we're using a cook down recipe and we have our sugar, we shouldn't have a problem. So
excuse me, I can't see you. All I see is the orange chili marmalade.
Oh, well, that's not good. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
So let me redo that. So I just went ahead and cut the end off of my orange there, which had where it was on the tree. And then what I was talking about here is that if you can see here that you had the pith of the orange. And this is actually, I mean, it's natural pectin for you to be able to make the orange marmalade. So depending on what recipe you're using, you may see recipes that say that you have to get rid of this, and you may see recipes that say it's okay to add it. See, today's recipe, we're not using any pectin, so we're going to be using this pith to be able to use it. But if you find a recipe that's not, what you need to do is you need to remove this white part. And it's very easy to do. You can just take the back of a spoon and it scrapes off very easily. So you just want to make sure that you get a nice clean peel. And if you're not cutting it, but one trick that I like to use, if I'm just using that, is I just take my potato peeler. And if you take your potato peeler, if you can see there, I'm not getting any of that white pith. It's just the actual peel. So this is a little trick that I use to be able to do that when I'm using if I need the peel. That way I don't have to do an additional step by scraping that pith off. So today we're going to go ahead and start our recipe with cutting our oranges. Let me grab my knife tree out here. So you want to slice these thin. And you want to slice the end off. So you see how I have a lot of the pith on there? So I may just put this one to the side because I really just want to have the full orange here. And you're going to slice them into thin slices. And the reason that we're going to slice them into thin slices is because if you have big, thick chunks, it's going to take longer for this to cool down. So I'm going to slice mine into thin slices, and then I'm going to put them in halves. And then I have my bowl that I have going on here. And this is the pan that I'm going to cook in. But if you have another bowl at your side, you can do that. So go ahead, let's go ahead and just give these a thin slice. And so, I mean, it might be easier for you to use a paring knife. I actually am using a bread knife. This is a bread knife that was gifted to me from a family member. And I like it because it's got a serrated edge and it makes it a little bit easier for me. And if you want to cut these down even into quarters, you can most certainly do that. So you can cut them into quarters. Just depends on how you know, if you're looking for a real chunky marmalade, or if you want to have something that's got a little bit more bits in it.
Are we cutting all the oranges?
Yes, go ahead and cut all your oranges. And again, how you see how I took the end off there, because I really want to get where I have the orange part. So if you don't have a nice part of the orange, see like this part here, I don't want to put that in there. And if you get to the end where you have a bigger chunk, just go ahead and slice them up. Just dice them into smaller pieces. So you have maybe a little triangle piece. Actually, since I started dicing, I'm going to make mine all the same. So you can see I'm sectioning mine into multiple pieces. So I'm getting little bits of pieces. And today's recipe, it called for, we adapted the recipe because we're not doing a full recipe. So this is going to cook down. So I think, you know, you have, I think it was 3 pounds of oranges is what we, or what was put in the kit.
See, we had a question. Does this work with any citrus? Can we do it with like grapefruits as well?
You can.
Okay, I'm about to go pick some from my tree.
Yes, you can. Now, if you do it with a grapefruit, your grapefruit, depending on how sweet your grapefruit are, it might be a little bitter. But again, I know today's recipe has quite a bit of sugar in it, but marmalades tend to have a higher amount of sugar. If that's a concern for you, there are other recipes and other products that you can get out there where you can use a lower sugar content. You would just need to buy a product that you can use. And you can find them in the stores. Right now is canning season, is getting ready to start. So a lot of these products are readily available.
Excuse me, are we doing the 3 pounds of oranges?
Yes,
Okay, that's a lot of oranges. Thank you.
you're welcome. I think 3 pounds of orange. I think I had about 5 oranges in my kit. I don't know if everybody got the same, but
Yep, it's about 5 to 6 oranges. Some are bigger, some are smaller, so it varies. I have a question, Dee.
yes.
So with using other citrus like lemons or grapefruits, do you have to add more sugar with like the more sour, bitter fruits than with the oranges?
You may need to. I haven't made a grapefruit one. I've made where I've had grapefruit in my orange marmalade, but again, since orange marmalade typically has a lot of sugar, it's not something that you have to add even more. But if you're not happy with the amount of sugar, as long as you're not making it a shelf-stable product, you're using a refrigerator or a freezer recipe, you can adapt the sugar.
All right, thank you. That was the next question. Someone wanted to know if we have to exactly follow the amount of sugar in the recipe or if we can decrease it.
No, you can
less
decrease
sugar.
it.
Okay.
Now, I do want to caution you in decreasing the amount of sugar is that sugar is a natural preservation agent. So if you decrease the sugar, it may take longer for that gel to form, or you may even have it where it's not going to form a full gel since we're not using pectin in this recipe. So there's definite advantages and disadvantages when you're using pectin and not using pectin. So you really have to just do a little bit of research and decide which is best for what it is that you're doing. And honestly, the best thing to do, I can only encourage people is just to keep trying things, because you never know recipes if you're going to like them or not like them. Just don't be afraid to try different things in your kitchen. Now I'm making mine rather chunky, but if you want to make your peels a little bit less. But like I said, my intent is I'm going to be using this as a barbecue glaze.
We have another question. Is there like a general fruit to sugar ratio for marmalades? Just like if we ever want to make a marmalade with other fruits, is there a general ratio to follow?
Usually the marmalades, the recipes that I've seen, it's usually it will have equal amounts of sugar to the equal cups of fruit that you have. So like we have roughly 3 cups of fruit, 4 cups of fruit, you would use 3 to 4 cups of sugar. And like I said, there's lots of product that's out there that you can even use for marmalade. There's Ball and Certo, and most of pectins, commercial grade pectins, will have a recipe that you can use. If you're really looking for a lower sugar type recipe, you need to find a product that's geared towards that. And so ones that you would see that are in the grocery stores now is Sure Gel would be one that you can have for a pectin. And for a low sugar, it's pink packaging. The yellow box is a full sugar recipe. And then also the Ball has low sugar pectin options available. And I think the low sugar one is kind of in an orange container. They've changed their packaging recently, so I could be off on that. But the outside of the package will definitely tell you that it's meant for low sugar. And so like a typical recipe, like today's recipe normally is 6 cups of or 9 cups of sugar. So that's quite a bit of sugar. So if you were to find a product, or even there's another product called Pomona's Pectin. With Pomona's Pectin, you would say maybe have 5 cups or 4 cups of fruit and maybe only have 1 cup of sugar added to it with that pectin, because that pectin is actually designed to be used for low sugar.
These are very juicy oranges.
They are. So you want to make sure you get all that juice in your container. I have my little cutting board.
And I was thinking the same thing. I was like, let me go get a towel real quick.
I want to get all that goodness in there. And then today, while our marmalade is cooking down, I have a few other slides to show you about some other preservation methods that you can use for oranges. We're so fortunate here in California that we have such a great citrus season and we have such access to these, because there are other people throughout the United States that do not. They have to rely on getting product trucked in where they don't necessarily get these fresh off the tree. Another one of those advantages to being a Californian, right?
Definitely. Dee, I have a question.
Yes.
Can we use different types of sugar? I think for this kit, we just put regular cane sugar, but could you use like raw sugar or like coconut sugar? I know there's different sugar options.
You can use other sugar options. One thing that I would caution you on using another sugar option is that if you were going to try and maybe use like a brown sugar or that raw sugar, is that if it has the like a natural tint, because we're using white, so it's not going to make a color change, that those may affect the color of your product. So that would be my only caution if you're going to be using a different sugar. I'm going to pick up my, and I'm just going to get I just got the juice from the end that I wasn't going to use because there's a little bit of juice there. I want to make sure I get all my juice. Now there's all kinds of recipes for orange marmalade out there. So feel free to take a look and use a recipe that is Got most of that in there. From a safe source. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. Just be cautious about the information and what you see, because not everybody necessarily is conscious about the methods that they're using. And as a master food preserver, we do, if we're teaching for shelf stability, we are limited with the sources that we teach from. And the reason that is that we want to make sure that your safety is number one. And so there's things that we would not teach or recommend. And one of those things, I get a lot of questions about it, is using wax paraffin on your jars. You still see that, and even when you go into the aisles in the grocery store, you'll see that they have wax paraffin on the shelf right next to the canning jars. That is not something that we would recommend. And there's a few reasons that we wouldn't recommend that. And I know that people will say, well, that's how my grandmother did it. And I mean, I fully believe that. And a lot of times, back in the day, they had root cellars, so they had more temperature control. We don't necessarily have root cellars. You'd be hard pressed to really find people that have root cellars available, especially here in California. So one thing that will happen if you try and use wax paraffin, if you're going to dip your jars in wax paraffin to try and keep that seal on, is that if it gets warm, and it gets warm here in California, that wax could loosen up and the seal on your jar could actually get loosened, and it could pop open, and then something could get in there. And then as it gets warmer or as it gets cooler, it will shrink back down and it will look like your jar didn't even open. So it will reseal itself because it's going to expand and constrict based on the temperatures. So that's, one good reason why we would never recommend using wax paraffin as your sealer on your jars. Hope everybody's coming along okay on their chopping. I'm almost done.
Thank you, Dee. We just had another question
Sure.
about the pectin for low sugar. You said
Yes.
Ball has a low sugar pectin option. I think I found a link for the product, but if you could maybe just explain more about pectin and how it could be.
Yes. Yeah, because again, this recipe is a cook down recipe. So cook down recipes, it's a commitment. But the pectin in there is going to actually help the gel form. So depending, if you're not adverse to using pectin and actually want to do that, if you could also look up a product called Pomona's pectin, that's another low sugar alternative. And the Pomona's pectin you can get in you can buy it online, but you can also find it at Sprouts Market. And it's a good product. I like it, but actually all the low sugar pectins are good, because I like to be cautious about the amount of sugar I'm putting in my body as well.
Are you slicing the lemon now?
No, I have my lemon here.
Okay.
But on the lemon, we're going to zest our lemon and then we're going to put the juice in. And you get all that juice in there. So for zesting a lemon, I have a lemon zester for this, but if you don't have one, you can just use a grater. And then also, again, if you don't have a lemon zester, you can just get your peeler and then just peel it. And then you can dice that up. So it just gets a little tricky when you do that, but you can just dice them, slice them up, and then you'll have little peels. And I actually saw one where they had peeled the whole thing and then they cut them.
Can I zest it straight into the pot?
Yes, zest it straight into the pot. That's what I'm going to do. I just wanted to show everybody, if you didn't have a zester, what your other option could be. And you want to make sure that when you're zesting, that you just get the zest of the citrus. You don't want to cut into that white part, because remember that white part can be bitter. So how good does that lemon smell if you're zesting? And then we're gonna get ready to start our cook down.
Dee, we have a quick comment and question. Someone says they really like your apron. And how would they go about becoming a master food preserver?
So on our website, you can get to our website from CE San Bernardino and click Master Food Preservers. We are in the middle of doing our training right now, but there is a interest survey that you can fill out that says that you're interested in becoming a Master Food Preserver. So the next time we have classes, we will contact you to fill an application out. Our program is open to the counties of San Bernardino's residents. However, since we are so close to our neighboring counties and because we're a large county, we do accept residents from other counties. It's just on an availability basis. So San Bernardino residents would get priority. I'm going to go ahead and start my, put a little juice on that sugar. I'm going to go ahead and start my heat source. Hopefully it doesn't get too loud. And I'm going to add my water. So for our step one, if I switch back here. So we're on step one. We're combining our oranges, lemon zest, juice, and water in a stainless steel pan, and we're going to bring it to boil. So I have my 3 cups of water, and I'm going to add that, and I'll switch back to my picture here in just a second. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring this to a boil over high heat, and we're going to stir it consistently and constantly because you want to make sure that it doesn't burn. So it's really important that we do that.
Did you say 3 cups of water?
Yes, I'm using 3 cups of water.
I have a question. Does
Yes.
it matter if the pan, is Teflon or does it have to be stainless steel?
Teflon to be fine.
Okay.
I may need to add a little bit more water here. I just noticing that it doesn't have on here that you're supposed to add the sugar, but we should be adding the sugar as well.
How much sugar? The whole container?
If you want to use half your container, you can. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here so that you can see me. If you're concerned about that, but again, I'm going to put about half in for here just to check it out. And I'm going to taste this a little bit. So I don't want to make it too sweet.
I didn't get a kit. How much sugar are we doing?
Start with half. And
So-
then let's go ahead and get this stirred in.
There's
But
about
half
there's
of
about-
what?
there's about 4 cups of sugar in the kits that we provided. So we're going to use about 2 cups of sugar for now to taste.
Okay.
Mhm.
All righty, thank you.
I actually may need to switch over to a bigger pot. Now, one thing that I'll mention is that if you have a lot of foaming going on, you would definitely want to have a bigger pot than what I have here because you can see how it's all the way up here at the top of my pan. And I'm going to go ahead and cut my lemon and juice it. And if a seed goes in there, don't worry about it. You can pick it out. Like mine just went in.
Dee, just to confirm, the kit came with the 4 cups of sugar and the 3 pounds of oranges. Are you doing a half recipe right now with 3 cups of water and 2 cups of sugar?
I just put 2 cups of sugar in mine for right now. I'm gonna have to change my pan out because I underestimated how many oranges I was gonna wind up having. So I'll change my pan out and then you can add the other portion of it.
Okay, so it's 3 pounds orange, 2 to 4 cups of sugar, depending on your preference, and then 6 cups of water.
I was using a low profile pan so everybody could see a good picture.
6 cups of water.
Now you can see here that I have my tasting spoons. I'm just gonna do a quick taste of this. But one thing that you wanna make sure that when you're using tasting spoons, that after you use your spoon, you wanna make sure that you put it over in the sink to be washed and that you don't mix it in with your other spoons. So those oranges are super duper sweet, which is good for us. So I may only just put a little bit more sugar in there because you don't want to make it too sweet.
I have a question on the water. You said 3 cups, but someone just said 6 cups. So is it 3 or 6?
And 6 cups was for the full recipe. So you need to cut that in half. So 3 cups.
Okay.
Let's take off your shoes. Take off your boots. Look, you got wood chips in there.
I'm confused, sorry. The
Yep, so that's
recipe
okay.
that was, it looks great. The recipe that was on the screen, that was the
Yes.
one that had the 3 cups of water and the 1 1/4 of oranges. So when you said cutting the recipe in half, which recipe now had the 6?
So the recipe with the 3 cups is the recipe cut in half. I'm sorry. That's the problem. I should have made that more clear when the original recipe for a full recipe, if you find it on freshpreserving.com, calls for 2 1/4 cups of oranges and 6 cups of water and 9 cups of sugar. So we're going to half that because
Gotcha.
we're only making a half a recipe.
Okay,
Except that I already added 6 cups of water.
So it would be 3 cups. And you can, I mean, depending on how, like, so I'm gonna fish this one out. I had a whole piece in there. I missed one.
and you said that your oranges, that it was really sweet. Do you prefer a certain kind of orange? Is it just a navel or a basic, or do you like Valencia?
No, I was just tasted what I already had in there and the oranges were really sweet. Sometimes
Yep.
some of the
That's
oranges,
the question.
they're not as sweet as others.
Yeah.
So like the oranges in like my backyard oranges aren't quite as sweet as the oranges that we had today. So
Yep.
nice treat. So you can see I got a good boil going here.
But marmalade can be a little bitter, right? Because when you buy different marmalades like Seville, they are different.
Yes, Seville oranges are very, very tart. And that, I mean, I have some, there's a place over in Redlands that allows us to come in and demonstrate over there. So we're able to get oranges from them. And you do use a lot of sugar with those, and that's because those oranges are very, very tart. And you need that sugar, so it's an edible product.
Could I ask you where in Redlands that you're speaking of?
It's at the Burridge Mansion.
What mansion?
Burridge Mansion,
How do you spell it?
Burrage, I believe.
Thank
And
you.
it's a foundation, and one of our master food preservers does a lot of volunteer work over there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, those oranges, they have just a few orange trees there on their property.
Mine's not foaming. Is it not hot enough?
I'm gonna turn this down to a little boil here. And then I'll be with you in just a second because I can't hear over my. I'm sorry, what was that?
She said hers isn't foaming.
It may not foam. I got my glasses fogged up.
The lemon zest on mine it tastes so sweet. I'm loving it. I don't know about
Doesn't
everyone
it
else.
smell great?
They smell so good.
How's everybody coming along for those of us following along?
Great.
Doing good. Dee, I just wanted to confirm one more time the recipe. Sometimes numbers get mixed around in my head.
Here, I'm gonna go ahead. Yeah, you want me to go ahead.
I just want to send it in the chat for those
Okay,
who.
I'm gonna go ahead and send it over to you.
Okay, I put for the full recipe, the full serving size, not the half size, it would be 3 pounds of orange, about 5 to 6 large oranges, 2 to 4 cups of sugar, depending on your preference. The kit came with 4 cups of sugar, and then 6 cups of water, and that's for the full recipe.
Yes, for the full recipe.
Thank you.
And the full recipe is gonna make approximately 8 ounce jars.
Okay. And then the people who have the kits can use that large container the sugar came in, and then any other freezer safe container they have. I bet your house smells so good right now.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I bet your house smells so good right now. with all the
It's
lemons and
smelling
oranges.
pretty good, all that orange. I'm gonna wash my hands here really quick because they're really sticky.
All right.
How many of you are doing savory ones, like with chili flakes? Or are you guys doing it sweet?
I added 2 strawberries in mine. Hope that's okay.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. I know I have grapefruit. I think I might go get some for my tree. And Dee, this is all about preference too, right? Like we could add more lemon if we want it more kind of soury, if we want it more.
Customize it for sure.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm gonna get up all my stickies.
So Dee,
Yes,
you had brought it to a boil and then reduced it so it's sort of a higher simmer and covered it?
yes. And let me go ahead and share my screen and put that back up there for our step 1. I need an assistant.
Do you feel free to email it to us too, and we could do it on our end.
Yeah, that will be good.
That might be helpful.
So here's our step 1 that we're doing. So we're combining our oranges, our lemon zest, our juice and water in a large stainless steel pan or a pan that you have. You brought it to a boil over high heat, and then you want to reduce that so you boil it gently. And we're going to be doing this for about 30 minutes. And the intention of us doing this is to get that fruit where it's soft, so you're not so when you eat it, it's going to be very gentle and very chewable in your mouth. So you don't have a big hunk of raw orange peel.
So Dee, what was missing there is the sugar, right?
Yeah, that's why I was looking at the recipe.
Gotcha.
I guess the UK site doesn't feel they need to put on there that add the sugar. I was double checking that right now. I'll have to point that out to them that they forgot to say to add the sugar.
So if you're not going to add an additional type of flavoring like the chili peppers, would you just still cook it for 30 minutes and that's it?
You're going to cook it for 30 minutes, yeah, and then you might have to cook it maybe a little bit more because you just want to make sure that you're cooking it to where you get that gelling stage.
All right.
And I'll show you when we get down to the gelling stage.
All right, thanks.
How did you guys find out about this workshop today? I'm curious.
Eventbrite.
Ooh.
Right.
I'm so excited to see it.
Eventbrite for me too. I'm from Northern Idaho.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
I'm from
Also
Massachusetts.
Eventbrite for me.
Oh, awesome, awesome. So we are Cal State, just a little bit more. We're Cal State San Bernardino out in Southern California. And we have a local community garden on campus that Autumn and I got to start with a few other students and faculty members. And because we're not on campus right now to do some of the harvesting and planting and stuff, we get to do workshops with a local Inland Empire Resource Conservation District. So they help us with doing free kits. Oh, Cindy, Australia. Wow, that's, oh my God,
Wow.
awesome. So we have these monthly. We had a pesto workshop last week. That was really right, last month. That was really fun. We could send you more if you want to personal message us. We could send you the recipe and the recording for that one as well.
Oh,
but that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool that you guys found out through Eventbrite. And we're just a small little community. We're a small little college.
I've been to San Bernardino.
Oh yeah.
The inn. Is it the inn at San Bernardino?
Okay.
Yeah.
How cool. Oh, I'm so excited. We'll have to send you some more updates then. You'll be on our list. We can send you some more workshops that we have. This is a part of our Preserve Your Harvest workshop. So we're trying to reduce food waste in the kitchen and kind of show you how to utilize everything that you have. So we also had a vermicomposting workshop this past couple months. That was really fun. I had my little worms on the side of my kitchen. Oh yeah, the pesto workshop was the best. Oh, that's good to hear. Let us know too, as we kind of continue today and we're waiting for our marmalade, what other workshops would be kind of fun or you guys would be interested in. We also work with our master gardeners and our master preservers. So it really ranges, like we could do a native plant workshop. We could do more pie filling workshop. Really fun stuff. Yeah.
I'd like to learn how to preserve or can tomatoes.
Ooh.
I grow them, I freeze them, but I'm afraid to try the canning process.
Yeah.
Okay, we can definitely do something on that this summer.
Well, that'd be really fun.
I would love
There
it.
is some trick. I know that there's a lot of people that are very unsure of when they're doing food preservation, especially if you are not an experienced food preserver. But
Mhm.
that's where we come in, so we can help you bridge that gap, so that you
Right.
can start preserving.
Yeah.
So actually, and I just did an exact thing what I'm telling everybody not to do. I see that you're supposed to add the sugar and the next step. So, but we're just going to go ahead and continue to boil ours down. So basically this first step, what your intention is trying to do is soften up that orange peel. But just keep stirring your product. Because we're going to be softening up our orange peel and then reducing this down. I'm going to go ahead and talk about a few other things while that's going on.
Can you show us your face again?
I'm sorry, what was that?
All I'm seeing is step one. Can you show us,
Yes.
or we can
And then,
see?
yeah, step one, that's what we're doing right now is we've got our oranges, lemon zest and water in there. And if you added your sugar, you're fine. I added some of my sugar. But basically we're boiling this down. And we're boiling this down to get like this nice juicy pulp so that we can go ahead and continue with the marmalade. And you're trying to soften up that rind. And we're going to get some pectin going in there with that boiling down. And if you were going to add your chili peppers, if you had dried chili peppers, you'd add them at this time. I'm not going to use dried chili peppers in mine today. I'm going to use crushed red pepper. So I'll add my crushed red pepper in the next step.
When you add the sugar?
Yes.
I already added. Can you
You're
hear
fine.
me?
Just
Oh,
keep
I already
stirring.
added.
So while we are stirring, I want to talk a little bit about food safety basics. Just remember, hopefully I won't disturb you or take your attention away too much from your marmalade. But a little bit about food safety basics is that when you harvest, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, but are you on? I'm not seeing you.
I'm not, I have my presentation on the screen.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'll come back on after let's go over a few things, just trying to have some filler time. Yep. So harvesting, when you're harvesting, you want to make sure that you have clean tools in a container and that you're knocking off any clods of dirt, just so you're not bringing that extra dirt into your kitchen or wherever you're doing your little prep thing. And then before you use your produce, any produce, including your fruits and vegetables, anything, you want to make sure that you rinse it before you use it, and rinsing it with water only. You don't, I know that there's some other things that you can rinse them with, but rinsing them with water is sufficient in making sure, and then I'm giving them a good scrub down just before you're using it. And we always want to make sure that we clean and sanitize our work area and also our tools. We overlook our tools, especially if you're out there in the garden, making sure that we clean those and make sure that we're not spreading things. And then in the kitchen, we want to make sure that we have our hair pulled back and covered, and then have a clean apron on. And the apron is also, it's not just to protect your clothes, but it's protect things that may be on your clothing from going into your recipe. And then also hand washing, which we briefly talked about in the beginning. And then the goal of food preservation is basically to keep foodborne pathogens from growing inside your food. And so the intent of us doing these preservations is we're destroying or we're inhibiting the growth of the foodborne pathogens. So keep stirring. You want to stir mine, take a step away. I'm actually think I'm going to go ahead and move my computer so that I can be a little bit more agile here. How's everybody's coming along? Smelling good?
Yes, it tastes good. I have a question. I quartered my oranges and they look kind of big. Is that how my marmalade is going to be? They're going to be big chunks?
Yes.
So if I want them smaller, I need to do that at the beginning.
Yes. Because your peel will get softer, but it might disintegrate a little bit.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have made that more clear.
But the flesh will actually pretty much dissolve, right? So you just have the bigger rind.
Yeah, I have some large pieces in mine as well. I've seen it several different ways where they've sliced them very thin. And then I've also seen it where they're chunky. I'm not an orange marmalade expert. I will be before it's over with. Actually, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then I'll put my video back on. And then that way you can see me there, and then I can just read my screen. And we'll just
Will you,
have a little.
will you talk about the container that we're gonna put these in, or the choices we might have?
Yes, I can talk about that. Now, in food preservation, when you're going to make it a shelf-stable product, jars, let me grab one here. You'd normally see, these are like a standard 8-ounce jar, and these are, this is just a mason jar type, and you have your lid that's on here. Since this is going to be a freezer recipe, you can reuse containers that are food safe grade containers from your kitchen. You just want to make sure that it can go in the freezer if you're going to store your product in the freezer, or and that you're going to be able to, it can handle high heat. So what I have here, and the container that you received your sugar in, this is a container that is meant for hot or cold. So you'll be able to store your product in there after we get through making.
Okay.
And you just want to make sure that if you're going to freeze your container, that you leave a 1-inch headspace. And I will mention that again, what we're there. And the reason that you do that is that when you put product in the freezer, it expands.
Right.
So with that expansion, you need to make sure that you have enough room in your container, because if you didn't leave enough room, it's going to find the room by pushing the product out and then making a big mess in your freezer.
So if I have frozen something in one of those canning jars with the lid and the ring, can it was never used as canning. It was just frozen. I can reuse it to freeze this.
Yes. So this one here is actually, it's some boysenberry jam that I did. And this is something that I water bath can. So this is shelf stable. I don't need to refrigerate it. You can hear that it has that seal on there. So this lid, when I open it, this lid I would only reuse for a freezer process or store it into my container. I wouldn't process either a water bath process or a pressure canning process with that lid anymore. These are like a one and done when you're going to when I'm talking shelf stable processing, but you can reuse them in your kitchen for like when you open up your container and then you have some leftover. So I have a big supply of these left over because I use them all the time, especially let me walk around here. I powdered some habaneros, and let me show this for you, because I was going to maybe do some habanero dust. So this is just a habanero that's been dried, and then I ran it through a spice grinder, and then it's just fine powder, and then you can add this into your recipes. But it's hot. It's habanero.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So
we have 2 questions real quick.
Sure.
The first question is, can you reuse like sauce jars? I'm thinking like pasta sauce jars and use that to store a freezer marmalade.
Yes. And I would highly encourage you to reuse those containers. Those containers are also great containers for like pickling, because summer's coming up. So right now we're kind of finishing our California winter, but our vegetables will be coming into season pretty soon, and we'll be doing a lot of pickling. So those containers are great for pickling, and pickling just isn't pickles. You can pickle carrots, radishes, jicama, cauliflower, all kinds of stuff you can pickle. You can pickle just about anything. You can pickle watermelon rind.
Wow, that's crazy.
It's very sweet, but you can do it.
With the
It's a sweet pickle.
recycled sauce jars, you wouldn't want to do the boiling of the jars, the pressure canning, right?
You
Okay.
would not do a water bath canning process or a pressure canning process. Those
Okay.
jars need to be a mason jar or a jar that's specifically designed to handle that high heat. And then you always will use a fresh lid with that.
All right.
And
sounds
then if you're doing preservation already in your kitchen, and you have that going, when you're storing your jars, I don't store mine with my lid on there and with my ring on there. And this is my ring. And the reason that I don't store them with the ring on there is because if I have my ring on here and I have it sitting in my cabinet, if something would happen and this would pop open, if I have this ring on here, it would actually promote it to reseal, and I wouldn't know that that came apart.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one little tip. And if you're going to stack these, be very careful with stacking them. You don't want to stack anything that's larger on top of this one. So if I were going to stack these, I would put like a piece of cardboard in between there to make sure that they're not directly on each other. And I would kind of off center my stacking. And then I would make sure that I don't put anything larger than the 8 ounce on there. So I would maybe my 4 ounce jars on top of my 8 ounce jars.
All right.
Don't stack something heavier on top of something smaller.
For today's purposes, if I want you to use a ball jar, I don't need to boil it. I just need to make sure it's clean to pour the marmalade in.
That is correct. And that brings me up to another good point. All these good questions. See, I was worried about filling time. If you're going to be using new jars, meaning you got a case of new jars and you're going to be processing with those jars do not need to be sterilized, but I would always encourage you to sterilize them if you're concerned about that, because anything that you're processing over 10 minutes doesn't require you to do any extra sterilization on there, because that 10-minute time is going to kill anything that's growing in there. I always boil my jars before I start. It's just part of my prep process. So it's just one thing that you develop habits when you start doing preservation in your kitchen.
How long do you boil them for?
10 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
If you're sterilizing your jars, 10 minutes is what your point is going to be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One more question, Dee.
Sure.
Someone said their sauce is still watery. They used 4 cups of water. Should they just let it simmer longer? Maybe we could see how yours is looking. Yours still looks a little bit watery too.
Yeah,
This
mine's still a little watery. So
okay.
I'm gonna take my lid off of there so it's not. So if you take your lid off, I have a little bit of a lid on there. It will actually help that water evaporate. So I had my lid on there to kind of help soften my peels. But if you have your lid on and it's still very watery, go ahead and remove that and let that go ahead and evaporate off.
Very watery also.
But I have a question, because the original recipe, you realized that you wouldn't have added the sugar until the second boil.
Yes.
So if it's watery now, it should be, because you're only softening everything. In fact, you wouldn't have added any sugar at all. And that's what's going to thicken it, right?
If you added the sugar, like I added the sugar, because I was getting a little ahead of myself, it will be syrupy and it is going to be watery, and you're going to continue to cook it down. So you're going to continue to stir it. If you have not added your sugar, it's still going to be kind of soupy. And what we're trying to get is a pulp-like or kind of like a sludgy type consistency, because then you're going to add your sugar to it. Does that help?
Yes. So you're going to put up a step 2, and in the step 2 is when you're going to cover the sugar.
Yes, actually, let me go ahead and put up that step 2. I'll bring up all 3 steps so we can see them.
Someone asked another question about sanitizing jars. They said, instead of boiling to sanitize, can you put jars in the oven to sanitize? What temperature and how long? And how would you sanitize the lids?
So I do not sanitize my jars in the oven. We, as Cooperative Extension and Master Food Preservers, we do not recommend oven canning of any type. And the reason that is that because you could actually crack your jars. I mean, I've seen it. I've even seen it on the internet and seen it on here, and it's been very tempting for me to do that. I have not done any type of oven canning. just because I was trained that we don't do that. So I wouldn't recommend sterilizing your jars in the oven that way. One way that you could sterilize them without having to put them in the water bath counter is running them through your dishwasher cycle. And making sure if your dishwashing cycle has a sanitize type button on there, that you hit that button so it gets hot enough. And if you have any seeds that fell through, I saw one. That's what I'm kind of looking through, if anybody's wondering.
And if you're using the boiling method to sanitize the jars, the lids would go in that same water, right? To boil.
So now the lids have changed with how our processing environments and how their doing methods have improved. So the lids you no longer have to heat. If you choose to heat your lids, one thing that I will caution you with on heating your lids is be careful not to overheat them, because that compound, you're just softening that compound up. And you don't want to overheat it so it it boils away, I guess is the best way for me to say it.
Okay.
You just really want to soften it, because you just want to soften it so it can kind of sit on top of the lid and then naturally make that seal from the heat when you're processing it.
So the lids and the rings anymore, you don't have to boil, like just would wash them and use them.
Yeah, just if you have some other lids, I would follow the recommendations on the outside of the packages. I know that Ball and Kerr are about the only lids that I've seen. And the directions on there are just washed with warm soapy water. There are master food preservers, and there are times that I will put them in there, but it's not required for you to have a pan of warm water. If you do want to heat your lids, don't boil them, just put them in warm water, and don't keep them in there over an extended period of time, because you don't want that compound agent that's on the top of that where it's going to seal your jar to go away, to erode away.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you could just boil like a kettle of water for tea and just put the lids, pour that into a bowl and throw the lids in
Yeah,
there?
that would be more than sufficient.
Okay.
And then, like I said, just have them in there for just a short period of time. You don't need to have them in there for any extended period of time.
Right. Okay. You're just looking to have everything hot.
Yes. And that's one rule when you are doing food preservation. You want to have your hot product going into a hot jar. You don't want to put hot product into a cold jar, because you don't want to shock the jar and possibly crack the jar.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and taste a piece of my orange peel and see how it's softening up.
Another question about the lids, Dee. Someone said, what about the jars with lids that like twist on? They said, are those okay to use? I think maybe I've seen at the store they have like these kind of plastic white lids for mason jars that are just one piece.
Yes, for freezing and for refrigeration, yes, but not for processing in a water bath or pressure canner.
Okay.
The only thing what you need to do for processing in a water bath canner or a pressure canner, you need to have a 2-piece lid. That's what we recommend.
All right, thank you.
And it would metal. How's everybody's orange slurry coming along?
It looks good, but it's still it's not gel-like.
Yeah. Now, you're the one that you added sugar to it already?
Yes,
Okay. How is your peel? Is it still tough or is it tender?
it's tender.
I see a little seed in mine. I'm going to fish it out.
Mine's a little tough.
So if yours is still a little tough, and again, this goes back to how thin you cut it or thick you cut it, go ahead and continue to boil. some of us may be ready at a faster rate than others, but I'll still stay on until everybody's finished.
Yeah, my liquid took a long time to boil. So yeah, I can
Okay.
watch everybody else.
I have a question. Since I live in higher altitude, if I were to make this recipe, I know sometimes there's different time for like boiling stuff. depending on altitude.
Yes.
How would that be adjusted?
Yes, so one thing, when you get your recipe, and if you are doing a shelf-stable process, meaning water bath canning for this type of product, you would make sure that you know your elevation. It's really important for you to check your elevation. And then in your recipe book or wherever you got your recipe from, there will be an altitude adjustment. So I live in Devore, so I live in the foothills and my altitude is 1,200 feet. The recipes as they're printed in these books are meant for 1,000 feet. So there's always an altitude adjustment that I have to do. And different products have different types of altitude adjustment. And what I can say is that, so for instance, with ball, for every 1,000 feet that you're over the 1,000 feet mark, so for between 1,000, so if you're 1,001 feet to 1,999 feet, you're going to be in the same range there. Their adjustments are I'm sorry, like 10-minute increments. But with Pomona's pectin, which is pectin for making jams and jellies, their adjustments are only in 1-minute increments. So always refer to the recipe that you're using to, because all the adjustments are not the same across the board. And if
Have
you
you-
have, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you have a recipe that you're unsure of or a product that you're unsure of and you can't find that, feel free to contact me and I can help you find that information, or I can look in my reference material for that information. So the basic gist of it is make sure that you follow the altitude adjustments for your processing time as recommended for the recipe that you're using.
I have a question on the, when you freeze your jam. I know you haven't gotten to that yet, but I've never frozen jam. And when you go to thaw it out, is it going to be watery?
No, it won't be watery.
Okay.
And that's the nice thing about being able to do that. So if you're not somebody who is comfortable enough or feels that, that canning is for them, using freezer processes, or if you want to alter your recipe and do some tricky things by adding different spices or things like that, freezing is a great method. Freezing is a method of food preservation.
Have you ever put like a dessert wine, like a muscat and fresh rosemary in with it? You ever tried more French?
There is a recipe that I did with Pomona's pectin, and it was with apricots, and you put brandy in there.
Yep.
It was delicious.
Yeah.
So
What did you use it for? Because I'm thinking, like a cheese plate does part after dinner.
Yes, you can use that on a cheese plate, garnish, like if, put it on the topping of a meat that you're serving.
Yeah.
I served it over ice cream.
Mm.
My dad's pretty picky. He's not a real sweet guy, but he really liked that one. So it was a keeper recipe.
Ooh.
And it was very subtle, just enough. But there are lots of recipes out there where you can add wine or prosecco in your jams and jellies, or even some of the sauces. And a lot of these things you can find on the internet without having to buy the cookbook. They're sharing these recipes more and more.
Yeah.
So that you have a little bit, because purchasing cookbooks can be quite expensive, which I've learned over the last few years.
Yeah.
One thing is that on the Pomona's pectin, on their website, now Pomona's pectin does have a cookbook, as does Ball. And both of those websites actually have quite a few free recipes that you can get from their website. So check those websites out and I'll make sure that I get the information before we get off here so that you know what those are.
Also, anyone interested in the pickling event that he also presented at, I was there. It was awesome. I still have the recipe and all that fun stuff, but I could send the video recording over in the chat if that would be helpful for everyone.
I
Oh,
would
that'd be
like
great.
pickling, yes.
Yeah,
Me
okay.
too.
I'll send
How
it-
do you, I've been trying to send some chats your way, but it says that she's not receiving them.
Oh, I'm not?
I don't know. That's what it popped up and said couple worked and then suddenly it wasn't, and which is fine. I just wanted to, I didn't care so much about the question because everybody's asking such good questions. Mine not so great, but it was just trying to get on the mailing list. So I didn't know how to do that.
I'm gonna have a survey go out for everyone after at Fort.
Great.
Right now, actually, I'm gonna put it in the chat, and then if you can
Thanks.
add some information, we're just getting a brief understanding of where you're at, how you heard about it, kind of what we already
Great.
talked about, and then updates for some suggestions for next month.
Thank you.
But yeah, let me send them right now.
Thanks.
Hey, Dee, are we supposed to, can we see you again?
Yes.
We miss you.
You miss me. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing here and bring this back up. My stuff is looking pretty good.
So you've added your sugar now and this, you went,
I did add a little bit of my sugar. I haven't added all of it.
Okay.
I tend to be a little bit stingy with my sugar.
good.
Usually it's really hard because when I'm making jams, I have my mom taste my jams and she likes the high sugar jams and my dad does not. So there's always a fine line. But see, even if you added your sugar in there, it'll just take a little bit longer for this. So instead of it being a 30-minute boil down process to get your slurry, you're going to be doing the full 45 minutes. So I promise you'll still have a product.
We're definitely gonna use this recipe in my family. I have my Aunt Peggy here too. We're gonna use this maybe for Christmas gifts this year, Aunt Peggy.
Wow. That'd be good.
Oh, somebody just added a bit of powdered cinnamon. Ooh,
Yes.
that sounds good.
And one thing I'll caution you also with peppers, hot peppers, make sure that if you're using one or two and you're just gonna be quick, you can put them in there without gloves. But if you're gonna be doing more than that, make sure that you wear gloves because that oil can get there and that oil is not fun when you rub it on your face or other body parts. It will burn and it's not pleasant.
Could you put it in like cheesecloth, like a bouquet garni?
You could. This recipe had on there to use dried whole ones, but I did not have dried whole ones. I have my dust that I had done. So I was going to add that afterwards, but then I decided the last time I used my habanero dust, it was a little too hot.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to go with chili flakes because like I said, the intent for mine is I'm going to use mine for a barbecue glaze. So I want it to be a little sweet and spicy. Maybe also to make orange chicken. One of the master food preservers when I was going through our training, I think it's been 2017. She made homemade orange chicken, and she made it with her marmalade recipe, and it was the best orange chicken I've ever had.
That sounds so good.
It was really good.
We have a few questions.
Sure.
Someone said that their mixture has been boiling for about 20 minutes. It still has a lot of liquid. The oranges are soft. They also added sugar in the first boil also. Should they
Okay.
uncover and boil?
Is it covered? If it's covered, take the cover off, take your lid off.
All right, so uncover and let some of that
Uncover and then let
liquid-
boil. Now, there's a couple methods that you can use to check to make sure that you're going to get a good gelling process. My foolproof method is using a plate in the freezer. There are methods like where you have it dripping off the spoon, where you have it where it's get a drip like that. Like this does not have a gelling process on it yet. So it would be pretty liquidy where it's at. So if you have a small plate, go ahead and put your plate in your freezer just so you can get it cold. And then after it's in your freezer for about a minute or two, it's not critical. Take a spoon of your product, of your orange marmalade that you have going on here, and put it on the plate and put it back in the freezer for 1 minute, and then see if it has a gelling process. And what you're looking for is for when you take your plate and you hold it up, that it slowly runs down your plate.
Oh, interesting. Thank you.
That's how I do it in my kitchen. Because
So when you think you're ready, that you test it that way?
yes.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and get my plate out just so that I can put mine in my freezer. Or bowl. My mom has these cute little bowls that I use too.
The next question, D, is about the Master Food Preserver program. And someone said that it appears the 2021 program has ended. When will the next one start? And when will the application process for that start?
We've just started our process for the 2021, but our application is closed. We're doing it virtually. We're completely online because of the pandemic, we are not doing in-person events. So we will probably have our next CERT class in the first part of the year. So if you go to the CE San Bernardino website and then click on Master Food Preservers, there is a box towards the bottom that says, I'm interested in becoming a Master Food Preserver. If you fill that out, it will come to me. And then when we open our applications up, I send the applications to everybody who's put that information in, so that you get an invite for when that's going to be.
All right, and that's usually at the beginning of the
Usually
year.
at the beginning of the year. It's, to be honest, this year it's been kind of neat because we're doing it virtually, because typically we would have everybody that would have to try and come in, and we would do it during the week after work, and everybody would be tired. So we're going to be using this as possible way to modify our training, so we can do like a hybrid. So we can do part in your home and then part where we'll get together when we actually do the processes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have another Master Food Preserver in the chat here, who has been providing a lot of really good tips. And they said that
Daryl.
Yes, it is Daryl.
Daryl, I made a big old mistake. Thanks for
And so Daryl was just reminding us that if you didn't use the full amount of sugar, which was 4 cups for the full recipe or 2 cups for the half recipe, you probably should have reduced the amount of water or need to boil it down for longer.
Yeah, boil it down longer. Thank you, Daryl. I knew I should have called you to jump on and keep me straight.
I used the 4 cups of sugar. Should I just add some more sugar?
No.
No, water is what.
How is your peel? Are you at a gelling process yet?
No, it's pretty watery.
Yeah. And did you have it covered?
I did, but I uncovered it.
Yeah. So once you uncovered it, it will start evaporating a little bit. Just make sure that you keep it stirring.
Okay.
I'm actually going to test my peel here. I'm running out of tester spoons.
Can I make a comment?
Yes. Please, Daryl.
Okay.
Hi, Daryl.
When you're doing a boiled down marmalade, you're relying on the state of sugar cooking to provide most of the gel. So in essence, what you're making is a really thick syrup. So if there's too much water, you got to get rid of the water in order to get to that syrup stage.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The French method is, when you do marmalade, is to soften the peel and use the pulp and the sugar and the water to get near the gel point, then add the softened peel back in so that the peel won't harden up as you boil it down. It'll unsoften in the sugar mixture to some degree.
And Daryl is my Master Food Preserver guru. Thank you for joining us today, Daryl.
Daryl, may I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Okay, so when you were saying about the French method, and so you have pulp, sugar, and water to get to that gel point, but then you're saying you're adding to it the peel. So you're talking about the pulp versus the peel that's
Yes,
been boiling down?
yes, two separate things. The
Yeah.
interior of the orange and the rind are
So
separate.
the interior, the orange. Then you have the rind.
Right. So when it was, the orange was cut for this recipe with the rind on it, are you saying that the French method would have gutted the pulp from that rind and all rinds would have been added in a separate stage?
Yes, but what Dee's recipe says is to soften the peel in the water without the sugar first, then add the sugar and boil it down. But if you reduce the sugar, you needed to take away a proportionate amount of the water because you're going to have to boil off all that excess water.
Gotcha.
Oh, we added the sugar at the beginning. We didn't.
Yeah, because I gave him the wrong instructions, Daryl.
Yeah, you're just going to have to just keep simmering.
Boil it down.
You got to get rid of that water.
Keep it uncovered, so don't cover it, and keep stirring your product.
And what this does is it kind of shows that you can't really make a low sugar version of a boiled down jam because the sugar is such a big part of the quantity. When you take out the sugar, you got to take out the water that goes with it. So you reduce the volume in direct proportion to reducing the sugar. And when you go to put it in the jar, it has virtually the same amount of sugar per serving.
And if you're looking for a low sugar recipe, that's when you would go to one of those commercial pectins, either the Ball low sugar or Pomona's pectin or Sure Gel. Just make sure that your pectin specifically says for low sugar. Is there another brand, Daryl, or did I cover all of them?
For low sugar, I think MCP has one, Sure Gel. Pomona's is a universal pectin. It covers all of them. Ball has a low sugar. And there are some commercial suppliers that you can get pectin from that have multiple versions of the pectin depending on what you're doing with it. I like Pomona's, but there's a little bit of a learning curve because precise measurements are important because the pectin is used in such small quantities that a rounded or a mounded spoon will affect the recipe drastically.
There is, and actually Sage and Autumn, that might be what a class that we want to have is putting something on there using Pomona's pectin, because Daryl is exactly right. Pomona's pectin, there is a learning curve with that product. And but I think we should calendar that for our next one, or for the next, maybe in the fall, or even we can do it later. I mean, there's lots of summer fruit really coming in that we can do that with.
Awesome, awesome.
But there is a learning curve with Pomona's pectin. I learned that the hard way.
Go potty, guys. Good kid.
I'm going to grab a few more spoons, so you're going to see me duck out here.
I did add in the chat as well the survey so we can get some feedback from everyone, and also the recording on YouTube for the pickling event that Dee did as well. So feel free to take a look at that while she's getting back to us. Oh, there she is.
I'm tasting or testing the softness of my rind here. Mine's just about ready.
Good boy. You guys are good. Yes, you're good. Yeah.
This is smelling super good. How's everybody else's coming along?
My rind is soft. It's just a little bit chewy. Is that good?
That's how I would like it for my kitchen. But if you'd like to have yours a little softer, then continue to cook it down. So for my recipe today, I'm gonna add some chili flakes. Although
How
this
much are
tastes
you
so
adding?
good, I'm not sure I want to do that.
I added 1/8 of a teaspoon because I didn't know if I'd like it or not.
Yeah.
So it's very minimal.
Dee, are you
Yes.
are you sure that that tablespoon measurement was correct for the red pepper flakes?
Depending on how, I mean, the red pepper flakes is up to you. I mean, depends on how hot you like it.
Tablespoon is a lot.
It is a lot. So,
And it also important to remember that it blooms in the jar. So if you think it's too hot now, it'll be hotter after.
it'll be super hot then, won't it?
Yes.
So if you're gonna add, if I don't know how many people are gonna be adding pepper, because the original recipe called for adding dehydrated habanero or dried habanero or a dried pepper. I would go on the light side, like Daryl had suggested, because it will intensify. So on mine, I just added 1/2 teaspoon on mine.
A question from somebody. They tasted their marmalade mixture and they said it tastes a little bitter, but they already added the full amount of sugar. Is there a way to fix that? Or
If it's still bitter,
yeah, go ahead.
let me get this turned down. So they can add more sugar to, I'm not sure, is it, I mean, how bitter is it?
They said a little bitter, so maybe
little
it's
bitter.
not like inedible. But marmalade is usually just has a little bit of bitterness anyways,
Yeah,
right?
there is, they usually will have a little bit of a little bitter bite to it. It's not gonna be, I mean, because all the syrup that's gonna be in there will come from that sweet goodness. I'm gonna go ahead and test mine here a little bit.
Should we take our bowl out of the freezer and put a little bit of?
Yes, if you're ready to test the gel on that. And I don't know, Daryl, do you have any tips or tricks on testing the gel off of a spoon?
No, just put it on the plate and give it a couple of, 20, 30 seconds to gel up, and then push it with your finger or thumbnail and see if it wrinkles.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to point out is everywhere you look, they quote the gel point as 220. That's fiction. It's absolutely not true. A satisfactory gel may occur from 216 to 224, depending on the amount of native pectin in the fruit you're using, altitude,
There's a lot of other factors that go into it. It's not a one-off. That's why I don't use a thermometer in my kitchen, because of that.
It's a good guide to have a thermometer and at 216 start checking.
Yes.
But I think they really set people up for failure by continuing to just say it's 220. In my experience, that just doesn't hold.
Well, my frozen bowl, it's not wrinkling, it's just liquid in there.
Yeah, mine is too. So I'm going to go ahead and boil mine a little bit longer.
Go on.
Yep, it's not ready. And that's always one thing here too, when I'm working on this portable one, it's not the same as your stove. It's nice for being portable, but. And basically this, just so you know, a little FYI, these little packets, this was left over from a pizza. It has just over 1/2 teaspoon of pepper flake in there.
I noticed you were using that. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I had leftovers, so I'm going to use it.
I have a lot of those sometimes left over and I don't want to waste them. So
Yeah.
it's a good way to
I-
use it.
I save all my little packets and I put them into one big container.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
You always get a handful of them.
Yeah, and I mean, I use mine, I season mine with my vegetable soup. Also my chili. It's just a nice way, and it's just a little bit. Sometimes I've had it before, and that's one thing I also want to mention is if you're shaking your spice over your dish, be careful because your lid can fall off, and then you're going to have all that spice in there. Do it, over a bowl first. I'm going to put my bowl back in my freezer here.
Oh, I see your doggy. Hi.
Yeah, he's got mommy-itis. I was traveling. My animal's normally not in my kitchen, but
Oh, that's so cute.
he's missing me because I was gone. How's everybody's coming along?
Good. I think it's coming along good. Tastes good
So
too.
for those of you who didn't put your sugar in, if you're at that gel stage where your orange rind or your orange peel is soft, you can add your sugar in there, and it'll be about 15 minutes before you'll start testing your gel stage. Could be less. This just makes me want Chinese food.
That's another thing I was going to ask. You mentioned you could make orange chicken with the marmalade. What else could you use the marmalade in for recipes?
Make a dip with cream cheese and put it over
Yeah.
the
Ooh.
Cream cheese dip. I would serve it like with sponge cake possibly, or just like a pound cake over ice cream. If I was getting into my cocktails and I wanted to have maybe just a spritzer water, I would maybe put a spoonful of my marmalade in my cocktail.
I thought that would be a good idea. When I had strawberry jam one time, I used it to make a strawberry lemonade. I just added a few spoonfuls of the strawberry jam.
Yeah.
We have a few questions about the freezer. If you could explain the freezer test again with the plate, and what
I got mine in my freezer test, so I'm going to turn this down so I can hear. So for jam or for marmalade, or when you're making jelly, as Daryl had talked about, the gelling stage on your product is not necessarily always going to be at 220. Like today, I didn't use a thermometer. I rely on doing a gel test in my freezer. And how I do my gel test in my freezer is I take a container, and today I was just using my little container here, and I put it in my freezer to get my container cool. And then I'll take a spoonful of my product and I'll put it in my container and then put it back in my freezer for about a minute. And that's just the way that I speed it up. That's what I use in my kitchen to do that gel test. But you can also just put it on a plate and let it cool down. And what you're looking for is to see that you have that gelling action going on, to where you can just slightly like push it around and where it's not going to run off of your plate or your container. You're looking for that slow movement. So like if you had it on a plate and you drew a line in your plate, that it separated and that it stayed separated and it slowly was coming in, that's when you're going to have some good gelling action going on. Do you have any other tricks that you might be able to add to that, Daryl?
Well, they just say to use the wrinkle test, put it on a flat plate, a little bit of it, and wait for it to set, and then just push it with your fingernail, and it should, kind of wrinkle and fold as you push it. It shouldn't necessarily just separate.
And then we had another question about after the marmalade is done, how long do you freeze the marmalade for? Or maybe their question was also about the freezer test. But maybe you could talk about how long you could store the marmalade in the freezer for.
Sure. So now this also brings up a good point when we're talking about marmalade or sugar or jams or jellies in its entirety. So your recommendation for this with being a full sugar would be to store in your refrigerator, between 3 and 5 weeks or so. If you're in your freezer, 6 months to 9 months, you could store that in your freezer. Now, if you're going to be using a low sugar, or if you opt to go with a low sugar process, realize that there's some trade-offs with low sugar. And one of those trade-offs is how long it's going to last in your refrigerator. In your freezer, it will still last your 6 to 9 months, but once you pull that out, it's going to not last as long in your refrigerator. So it may be only up to 3 weeks in your refrigerator if you're using a reduced sugar version. So that is one trade-off, especially with using the Ball low sugar or the Sure Gel or known as pectin, is that the shelf life after you have started opening your product is not going to be as long. But I think that the trade-off for me is a good trade-off, but you need to make that decision as far as what your trade-off is. And you can kind of see where I have my gels on there. I have my rather large pieces, but again, I said I was going to be using this one for the barbecue, but you can see where I have that sheeting action going on. So I'm going to get a gel. I guess I should.
Oh yeah, yours is gel.
Yeah, so you see that gelling action, and this is a spoon sheet test that you can have. So you.
Oh yeah.
So
This
this
is
is
on
that
the-
gelling going.
This is on the frozen plate.
Yeah, this is on my plate here, but this is I went ahead and took that out of there, but that's off of my plate, so you can see how it's got that drip, and that's what you're looking for. If it just runs off and doesn't take its time to slow drip, then it's not going to have a good gel to it.
Yeah, mine's running.
Yeah, so keep cooking it.
Now, do I cook it in a simmer or do I still do a boil?
I would go ahead and if you simmered it for the 40 minutes, correct?
Seems like it.
Okay, so I would go ahead and boil it hard at this point.
Okay.
Because you want to try and evaporate some of that liquid, since I gave you the wrong instructions.
I can see yours. Yours is very thick.
Yeah. So go ahead and turn the heat up on yours and make sure your lid's off.
Okay.
We
And
had
I'm gonna
another
go ahead and give mine a taste.
a question about all the different words we've been using: preserves, jams, marmalade. Are those all the same thing, or are those actually like specific differences
Okay.
between?
I just want to let you know that a quarter or a half a teaspoon was plenty of chili flake.
Okay, thank you.
So let's talk about the different types of product that you have. So for jellies and jams and preserves, so a jelly is made with juice. So you're not going to have any pieces of fruit in your jelly. So like when you see grape jelly, you can see there's no grapes in there. It's juice and sugar and a pectin. Now a jam and a preserve, those are going to be a kind of, they can be very similar. So with the jam, you're going to have fruit pieces, and it's going to be in a thicker sauce. So it's not going to be, and it could have juice in it as well, but you're going to have whole pieces of fruit in there. You're going to have some chunks of fruit. And the same thing with preserve. Now a preserve is going to have more whole pieces of fruit, or it's going to have very recognizable pieces of fruit. So like if you're making a strawberry preserve, you're going to see a chunk of strawberry in there, and you're going to be able to say, oh, it's a strawberry preserve, because you're going to be able to see your strawberry. Now, sometimes I'll start out trying to make a preserve, and well, I maybe get a little too aggressive and I wind up making a jam because I don't have any more whole pieces of fruit in there. But the basic, how I compare them is the preserve and a jam. They can be very similar in product or consistency and looks. The big difference between those is that your preserve is going to have whole pieces of fruit that you're going to be able to recognize.
Okay, I understand that.
So now a marmalade and also even a conserve, those are going to have peels in there. So it's going to be kind of like a soft jelly, because we have a little bit of jelly, but it's also kind of like a preserve because you have some pieces of fruit in there. So, but what makes a marmalade more prevalent than even a preserve or a jam is it's got the peel of the citrus in there. And then when you add a conserve to that level, a conserve is going to be like the consistency of a jam or a preserve, and it's going to have an addition of nuts or coconut in it. So, but your consistency is going to have that thick process. And one thing, like when you buy a commercial product that you have in your grocery stores, you'll be able to see like jelly, it kind of jiggles off kind of like Jell-O. It has that jiggly type texture. Whereas if you get a jam or a preserve, it's a little bit of a thicker product. And that's because it has more whole pieces of fruit. So how's everybody's coming along?
Someone just said, how do we know when it's done? Mine is almost out of liquid and super thick. To me, that sounds like theirs might be done.
I think theirs is done. So I would go ahead and do your gel test.
And you can do that also just with the spoon, right?
Yeah,
Like,
just take the spoon. I would just let it cool. You can just spoon it on a plate. I put mine in the freezer to help speed things up. Oh, as I just spill my chili flake everywhere. Let me just throw this away before I make a bigger mess. So any other questions about the gel test? Is everybody doing a gel test now?
Yes.
How is yours coming along that still had a little bit of liquid left in it?
It's not doing the wrinkle thing yet. It still needs to cook down a little bit.
Okay, a little bit more. So again, what you're looking for is that drip.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to show you again, if you do not have, if you're going to do this where you're going to segregate like the French method, where you're going to have your peels separate, that you can just take your peel, a potato peeler, and then if you see on the potato peeler how you can see here how it took off most of that pith.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of that white. It already did it for me. But if you're going to cut yours off and then go ahead and take your flesh of your citrus out of there, you would need to scrape that white off of there to help with the bitterness.
And Peggy, how is yours looking? You see mine?
It's not quite thick enough yet.
Okay. Yeah, we had to, Sini's is still working on hers.
And you guys they're cooking, you're boiling them at a higher heat, but keeping them,
Yes.
stirring them and uncovered.
Yes.
I see Georgina's. It looks like it might be ready. I don't know, Dee. Could you take a look?
Yeah, let me go ahead.
That looks really good.
Yeah,
Georgina.
that looks really good. I think it's good. I think you'll be happy with that product.
Oh, can we see or you can see?
You can pin hers.
Oh, okay.
If
You
you're
want
on
to pin
Zoom,
her?
you can look at the gallery view and then you can see
Oh, there
everybody.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, yeah, that is good. Oh, mine's not like that. Sage, how's is yours?
Yeah, we'll get there.
I'll show you. Hold on.
So as we're waiting for those to come up, let's take a look at yours. Ooh, I like your strips.
Those look nice.
I can't see yours, Sage.
Let me pin myself real quick. Hold on.
I can see your face.
Okay.
Oh, it's thick.
But then there's Sini's. Don't mind my dirty stove.
No judgment.
Vanilla.
Ooh.
That looks good.
So as we're waiting for that to go, if you're at the stage where you're going to start ladling your marmalade into your container, I just remember we had discussed if you're going to be putting a hot product, you want to put hot product in a hot jar. So you can let your product cool down since this is meant to be in the refrigerator anyway. We're not going to be water bath canning it. Oop, wrong button.
Hey, does ours look okay? Look at my.
Let me go ahead.
Oh, yeah, that's perfect.
That
Yeah.
looks beautiful.
See?
So
Ooh,
it
it turned
worked.
out
Glossy and everything. Yeah.
nice.
Oh, again.
So
you
what
put
you'll
pepper
do is
spray?
you'll ladle your marmalade into a jar or in your container. Now you can reuse the container that was provided. I have a smaller container, but I'm going to have to use a larger container, but I brought a smaller one out just so that you can see that. And then make sure that you label your container. So I have my Sharpie here. I'm really bad at that. As a master food preserver, I always tell people to do that. And I got to tell you a story. Before I joined the master food preserver, I just was like a kid in a candy store doing all kinds of jams and jellies. One of my neighbors was showing me some methods on doing that, and I made a whole bunch. Well, I didn't label them. And I made a whole bunch that look alike. So I wasn't sure what it was. So when I had to give it out, I said, well, I'm not sure what this is. It could be raspberry plum. It could be plum. It could be strawberry. I'm not sure because it all looks the same when you get it into the jar. So marmalade it's pretty visible with what it is, but it's always a good habit to get in there and label your container. And then especially if you're going to freeze it, then you know when you did it.
When you leave a 1 inch space at the top, where does that 1 inch start?
So your
That
1
makes them
inch.
obvious.
So your 1 inch, let me go ahead and bring out my headspace tool. For canning, if I have it handy, I should have brought that out as I'm digging through my drawer here. So typically I'll just show you here on my canning jar. Are you able to see my picture here?
Yes.
Okay, so on the canning jar, your 1 inch is going to be right here at this rim. That's where your 1 inch is going to start. And then as you move up, it goes to a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch. There is a canning tool, which I don't have handy here, but it actually has steps on it. And that steps will, I think it's in the other room. So the steps is where you measure on the inside. So it has 4 steps on it. Each step would be a 1/4 of an inch. But for today, just make sure that you're eyeballing it. And on your large sugar container here, you're going to, right here where that first rim is at, where the bottom of that rim, that would be a 1 inch line. And the reason that you're putting that 1 inch line on there, if you're going to put it in the freezer, is that as you freeze it, it's going to expand. And if you don't put that proper headspace in there, it's going to push up because and it could possibly break your container, even a plastic container, because as it expands, if it's got nowhere to go, it's going to find room to go somewhere.
Well, once this cools down, won't it thicken also?
It'll thicken up some, yes.
That's why you're doing the plate test on a cold plate.
Yeah.
To stimulate
Oh,
it to
okay.
cool down.
You're assimilating.
No, it's not. Okay, bye.
I'm going to package part of mine up because I'm going to share my cooking today. That's one thing with doing these demonstrations at home, my neighbors have been getting lots of good treats.
Mine's a slower drip now, so it is thickening a little bit.
Yeah. So you can see with my container here that I left it down there at that first rim so that I allow it. And then I'm not going to put my lid on this because this is still kind of warm. It's warm to the touch. So you're going to leave this out on your counter until it's cool, up to 2 hours. And don't put your lid on it. I mean, you could loosely put the lid on there in case you have anything, make sure nothing gets in there, but don't seal it down there. And the reason that is that even though you have warm product in here, you really want to get it and bring it down to temperature, because even if it feels cool on the outside of your container, it may still be very hot on the inside of your container. And if you put that into your freezer or your refrigerator, that could leave a breeding ground for bacteria or for foodborne pathogen because it's still very warm in there. And it's not going to be cooling at the same rate. So that's why we chill our food. And normally when we're doing our training, you'll see this even if you're getting a food handler's card, if you'll see that you're doing it. When they have these big pots of product, they'll gradually step them down into larger containers. So they'll put it in a big, large, shallow container. And the reason they're putting it in that shallow container is to help aid in that cooling down process.
Dee, I don't know if you said this, but I want to know. So you said in the freezer it lasts 6 to 9 months. If you just put it directly in the fridge to eat right now, how long will it last?
I would say between 4 and 6 weeks.
Okay.
But and I also have a slide there. If ever you're in doubt on your product, it's best to go ahead and just throw your product out. If you see mold growing on a product, I know that the first instinct is just to scrape the mold off. I mean, except, I'm on cheese. I mean, sometimes there are certain things that, mold you want to see, but on things that you obviously don't want to see mold on is on your jams, or your jellies, or your preserves. If you see mold that's already growing on there, that's not something that you should eat. Because even though you see it there on the top, and if you spoon it off the top, that mold actually has like tentacles that's going to grow down there, and you don't know how far it's gone down into there. So you may remove the surface mold, but that mold is still penetrated down into your product.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So again, if you're going to put this in the freezer, 1-inch headspace is what you're looking for. That's your goal there, and you want to make sure that you leave that.
Well, mine is gelling up really good now.
Good. Sorry, I gave you the wrong instructions.
Peggy, can we see yours?
Well, mine, yeah, I put it at the beginning.
Oh, your sugar?
My sugar.
Gotcha.
I
How's
followed
everybody else is coming along?
Pretty good. Sure.
Hey Dee, I have to leave, but thank you. I really enjoyed it. I learned some things, and I really would like that pesto recipe.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And again, sorry that I gave you the wrong instructions, but hopefully everything turned out right and you're happy with your product at the end.
It looks wonderful.
Yes, can we do a picture before everyone leaves, and you could show your marmalade if you would like? I'm gonna go get mine real quick. If everyone wants to turn their camera on, or
Nice.
all right, we're gonna turn your cameras on. Yay, Georgina! All right, everyone getting ready? All right, ready? 1.
Hey, wait, how do you turn it around? Sorry, I'm not good with this
No, you're
stuff.
okay.
You can see
Nice
it.
product. Esther's
Oh,
still
well,
boiling
go
hers
ahead.
down. Looks good.
Hey, Peggy, smile. I got you.
Okay, good.
2, 3. Ooh, that burned my hands. Let me check that out real quick.
We missed the picture.
Oh, you want to take it again? We can take it again. Give me 1 second. All right. Give me 1 second. Let me open it on big screen. Alrighty, everyone get back on, and we're ready to go. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Cheese! Yay! We got it.
Cool. Thank you for this.
Of course, and we'll put it in the our Instagrams, and we'll also be able to email it with the recording as well, so you guys have access to this. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm happy everyone enjoyed
Thank you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then feel free to stay on if you want to have any. If you guys have any more
Yeah, if
questions.
you have any other questions, I'm still here.
Yeah.
If yours is still cooking down, I'll stay. No problems.
I'm gonna make this later. I wasn't able to make it right now. But when I get home, I'm gonna make this, and I'm excited.
Love it.
I'm excited for how it's gonna make everything smell. It's gonna be awesome.
Good.
Are you going to be able to send us the, what do you say, video or whatever for previous?
Yes, I'll send you a
Oh.
link through the email that you signed up with on Eventbrite.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And
Thanks,
Sage,
Dee.
I'll give you the full recipe that you can send along with this since it got a little messed up.
No worries, that's perfect.
I
Awesome.
think we learned what the best recipe is, so it's
Yeah.
good that we went through that.
Yes.
Oh, one question. Someone said, can I let it cool down in the pot and then place it in the container?
You can, I have mine cooling down on my pot. The one thing I'll tell you is depending on what pot you have is it might retain that heat a little bit. But take it off of your stove, especially because if you have that heat source underneath it, it will still keep the bottom of that pot. And then just stir it frequently so that again, you're trying to get that, move that product around to kind of cool down. But it doesn't need to be, you can see, even I put this in here and it's still a little warm to the touch, so I'm going to keep it out. And just slightly covered.
Thank you. I'm going to be leaving also. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything. It really looked good. I
Thank
wish
you for
this was
joining
scratch-
us today.
Thanks for having us.
Look forward to seeing you on future presentations.
Oh, I'll be there. Thank you. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
Passover. Bye.
Yes, Passover.
I'm glad everyone's having so much fun. This is really fun, Dee. It turned out really good.
Turned out good, even though I made a mistake.
No, you
I mean, I don't know what I was thinking. That's what happens.
But I think that's good because then a lot of these people are first time, making marmalade. And so it's good to know that even if you make a mistake, it'll still turn out all right.
Yeah, we had to take a different avenue. And thank you, Daryl, for joining. I really appreciate it. You saved me.
When I make this, I'm thinking about what I'm going to put it on. I was thinking maybe I just got French bread from Trader Joe's and some vegan fresh mozzarella, and then maybe I'll spread the marmalade on top. Ooh.
That sounds so good. And I'm trying to think of what else I kind of want to make that orange chicken though that you guys were talking about.
I'll make an orange tofu.
If you make orange chicken, add a little bit of rice wine vinegar to it to give it that little, piquant flavor. It'll be much better than anything you get at Panda Express.
Yeah.
That sounds perfect, Daryl.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I told you, Chelsea had made some for us, one of our master food preservers, and I'm telling you, it was the best.
That sounds so good.
Yeah, and it's really easy to make. You just pan fry your, chicken pieces and then add the marmalade and the rice wine vinegar at the very end to coat, and you're ready to go. I do it all the time. It's a great use for marmalade. Save me having to eat those junk pieces they give you at Panda Express.
Yeah.
They give you all the joints and ligaments and stuff in their popcorn chicken.
Daryl's also a chef, so he's got lots of good tricks.
Okay, Daryl.
Yeah, you're gonna need to hook up with Daryl.
Yeah, well, maybe you have to do a workshop.
So Daryl, this is Autumn and Sage. They're with IARCD, and they're over at the Cal State San Bernardino Community Garden or the campus garden. So they're doing these classes monthly. Last month they did was it carrot top pesto? Was that what parsley pesto? Or,
yeah. And we had a really good turnout with that one too, and people really liked that we had the kits with us, so we had that available to people. So we wanted to continue that through, and I think the orange marmalade one went really well, went really well as well. So we're excited to see what we're gonna do for the following months coming up. We were talking about D with that. We're like, what can we think of? So I did a survey too, so we're gonna get some good feedback from everyone.
Okay.
And then I'll keep you updated, D. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can bring Daryl into that and get his little input, because he comes up with some really good creative things.
Yeah, and we're hopefully trying to go through summer as well. So we're trying to think of we want to work with that other orchard that we went to, see if we can.
Yeah, we got to find out what they're growing.
Yes, that.
I know they grow peaches, pears during the summer, and I've had them. They're really good.
There's a peach sriracha recipe on the Ball website that is delicious.
Ice peaches.
What's that? Okay.
spice peaches.
Yeah,
Ooh.
spice peaches. There's some really good peach recipes.
We were thinking about like maybe a peach cobbler filling recipe.
I did peach pie in a jar. I actually have some because I have several peach trees here on my property.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Dee, when you made the peach filling, did you use clear gel or did you can the slices or pieces and then gel it when you made the pie?
I used clear gel. I used the gel. I don't know. Was it clear gel? It was some gel that I had got from Honeyville. So I did use the gel.
It all comes, there's only 2 people that make that stuff commercially. Whoever it is that makes
Yeah, look at that.
gel, and there's one other one. So
Nice
it's
tree.
My grapefruit trees.
Yeah.
We have some dragon fruit.
Nice.
Here. You guys
Yeah, look up some
We also have-
recipes.
Yes. Oh, my grapefruits are so good, y'all. They're like sweet. You don't even sugar. You could just eat them right
Yeah,
off.
you can can grapefruit slices, segments. You can can the segments yourself. You don't have to make jams. You can just do slices.
Oh, thank you, Dee.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll look that up and then send that over to you.
just grapefruit segments in syrup. You used to be able to buy those canned at the grocery store, but you don't see them much anymore. Same thing, you used to be able to buy spiced peaches in a can. S&W and at one time Del Monte made them, but you just don't see them at the store anymore. They sort of fallen out of favor.
Also, all my avocado trees that we did from saving our avocados this summer in 2020. So there's like little ones all the way down there. We got crazy with it.
That's okay.
Just don't be disappointed because it's unlikely that you'll get edible avocados off of those seedlings.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should get a hold of Maggie. Because she did some nice classes. I mean, you'll get a tree out of it, but you may not get fruit out of it.
I had that problem with my Asian pear tree that we've had for about 9 years now. We're like waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a I think it's a lemon tree. Actually, I have a white peach tree. And that, I mean, I've gotten some peaches off of it, but they've never gotten, past that. And I'm thinking, okay. And then we had the fruit fly up here last year or the year before. So they had to come and clear all of our produce off of our property. So, and it was right before we were harvesting our peaches. So they took over 500 pounds of fruit off of our property.
Oh, wow.
Because we could not share it because our neighbor down the street actually had a fruit fly on their property. They found it. So last year's our production wasn't as good because that was, of course, a nice crop. But so this year we'll see what we wind up with.
Yeah, we also have an apple tree as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have apricot and then I have a plum. We have a grapefruit and orange. We have blood orange.
I think we had a kumquat tree. Oh, look at Diego Narcelli's.
Ooh,
Oh, yes, that's awesome.
that looks good.
Yeah, we tried a little bit of it. It's so
delicious.
good. So we can't
Does
wait
it taste
to see.
good?
Yes, it tastes
Oh,
good.
yeah,
Really
we can use it. What are you gonna use it with?
We don't know yet. Probably everything.
It'll be your side condiment.
No, I've seen some jams being made with like jalapeno, but it's sort of on the sweet side. Can I sort of try doing the same thing with this, or how would?
You can.
Different
What
kind of
you
pepper.
could do with that, I mean, that's why I put the chili flake in mine. But if you wanted to just take a little bit, you could maybe put a squirt of sriracha in there to try and make it as sweet and spicy. That's a good, a good one because you don't have to cook that one because since the sriracha's already cooked, so you can get some sriracha sauce and then make it like that for if you want to try and do a little spice to it. But if you wanted to
also
cook it with there are recipes that you can find to cook them.
Okay. If I were to use a habanero, because we do have habanero here at the house,
Mhm.
Would I just cut a little bit or just sort of put the whole? I mean, I don't know, like, because I don't want seeds in it, right? Because the seeds.
Yeah, I would. I can tell you my dealings with habanero is that sometimes because you don't know the heat of your pepper. And that's the drawback to them because sometimes they're super duper hot and sometimes they're not hot at all. So, I mean, I would taste your pepper if you can tolerate that, but I would always go on the lesser side. Because if you get it too hot, there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, if you have it not hot enough, you can always add more to it.
Okay.
So
That makes
on this recipe, it called for it, if you used a dried habanero, and for a full recipe, it was 3 dried habaneros. I would use 1 just to make sure that I was okay with that spice, because habaneros they've been very finicky for me.
Yeah, me too. Since we have them here at home, I mean, there's been some where you can literally bite into and you're like, and then there's other ones where you just touched it and it was like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Yeah, so if you have a bunch of habaneros that you aren't using, I mean, that's why I made this they call it devil dust. It's habaneros and I ground them down. So you dry them out, you dehydrate them, and then you grind them. And then this is just like a seasoning. So it's just, here, let me get my fork. It's just literally like a spice.
Does it bring the heat down a bit or is it just as spicy?
No, it's just a spicy.
Spicy. Okay.
Yeah. I could just that whiff from opening it up. It's spicy. So if you were going to put this in here, I would definitely, if your recipe calls for like a teaspoon, I would even go like a 1/4 teaspoon because it's going to be much more intensified. So again, start smaller and then you can build up. But that's a good way to save your good peppers.
Yeah.
And you can just add just a little touch of this to just about anything.
Yeah. Well, we're going to be heading out. Thank you guys for everything.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Also, if you're going to dehydrate your peppers in your dehydrator, put them outside. If you dehydrate them in your kitchen, all those fumes are going to go in your kitchen and you'll be choking.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We'll keep you updated, Diego and Araceli, for the next one too, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
All righty. How's everybody else coming along? Everybody got any other questions? Everybody's jam or marmalade turning out? Well, thanks for having me.
We appreciate you so much, and we're so excited to have our next workshop with you.
Yes, we're gonna. Well, I think that actually Maggie and I are meeting Monday, because we need to have our quarterly meeting.
Okay.
So and I wanted to. I had also told the other girls that we need to start calendaring our stuff because I want to get them calendared now so that we have